Prosecutors are debating each other over what to do with Colorado's red flag gun law. A state of emergency declared in Denver to help migrants arriving in the city. The state prepares a new plan to clean up the air we breathe, only a decade behind schedule. This week's landmark advances in nuclear energy production have us looking at Colorado's nuclear history and future. A class project to help the community literally got blown up.
This was unexpected and unfortunate, but not something that we can't overcome.
Here comes the community to help. Next. Colorado's prosecutors are divided on whether the red flag gun law should be expanded to allow more people, including prosecutors, to ask a judge to seize someone's guns.
I would certainly support the expansion of the statute to include district attorneys.
Right now, district attorneys like Democrat Michael Doherty from Boulder County cannot initiate a red flag petition the way that a police officer can or a family member can. Doherty wants the law expanded to include prosecutors, doctors, teachers, therapists. El Paso County DA Michael Allen, a Republican, is a lot more vague about his stance on expanding the law.
I'm certainly up to engaging in discussion and potentially modifying that legislation to make it appropriately fit certain situations.
DAs are meeting to talk about that this week. Expect them to have a loud voice in the room as the state legislature considers changes to red flag and other gun control next year. The city of Denver is declaring a state of emergency, freeing up more resources to assist the migrants who are coming here from the southern border. Mayor Michael Hancock says his decision came as city resources are, quote, at the breaking point. The city's pulled more than $800,000 from the general fund to provide shelter and support for more than 400 migrants. About 250 have come this week. 3 rec centers have been converted into temporary housing with round-the-clock staff. The mayor says this emergency declaration can help with resources up to a point.
I want to reiterate our call to the nonprofit, business, and faith communities to help with additional support, especially with sheltering space.
The mayor says the city believes that non-governmental organizations and social media campaigns are what's directing the migrants to Denver. So it's difficult to predict how many more will arrive and when. We have been getting some feedback on this from Next viewers who believe the migrants are being given shelter beds while American citizens, specifically veterans, are being denied beds. Doug, for one, thoughtfully writes, "You are a chump. The U.S. and Denver needs to house homeless veterans before any migrants." So here's what we know. The reason that there is not room for several hundred newly arrived people in Denver shelters is because those shelter beds are already largely in use by people who were in the city previously. It's the homelessness issue that we cover on a nearly daily basis. As for veterans experiencing homelessness specifically, the latest Metro Denver Homeless Initiative found that while overall homelessness in Denver has increased, the number of veterans experiencing homelessness dropped by almost a third. And there are lots of programs out there. There are Veterans Affairs supported housing vouchers from the VA. There's specialized workforce help from the city for vets. There's the Volunteers of America Veteran Services Center. There's rent assistance for veterans. And there's also shelters and transitional space specifically for female veterans in Denver. So we should probably avoid the assumption, especially without any evidence, that help being offered to one person means help being refused for another person. If you breathe air, Colorado has been failing you for a while, missing a decade's worth of deadlines to improve our air quality. Anusha Roy looks at the skepticism about a new plan being debated this week.
We're just showing up, invited or uninvited.
These women and moms are living with the fallout of breathing bad air. They have kids with asthma, have seen friends and family suffer, and said a working solution is hard to find because for too long they've been left out of the conversation.
But we're now being invited now, and if not, then you just make your own, you just pull your chair up and just sit by them, right?
So when a statewide air quality improvement plan was up for debate, the Black and Brown Parents United Foundation made sure to be there.
We're the ones who are breathing in all of these toxins and pollution.
Michael Ogletree with the State Health Department said Colorado has missed air quality improvement deadlines dating back to 2008.
We haven't been improving the air quality as fast as the standards have been changing.
It's been happening as Colorado often touts being aggressive at protecting the environment.
We do have some of the most protective standards of any state when it comes to oil and gas development. In the case of Colorado, we're growing really quickly. The mountains and just the way the wind flows through. We are just in an area that is prone to development of ozone.
The state hopes the plan will help Colorado course correct so that it can work towards achieving the 2008 standard by 2027 and make progress towards meeting the more stringent 2015 standards by 2024 through ideas like cutting down emissions from transportation and new rules for businesses.
When it's lowered to 25 tons per year, it will increase the amount of sources that need to have more stringent requirements in their permits.
It's a start, and I'm going to leave it as that.
Cherie Walker Ravenel with BPUF says dynamics have started to change.
We're all stepping up.
She would like to see more details on how to transition entire communities into a greener way of life without bankrupting people, and more outreach to communities, better communication, and more trust.
We're community members and nonprofits that are taking it on our own to monitor the air. But a lot of people in the organizations that are causing the issue still have all the money.
So CDPHE has said before that working on communication and outreach is a top priority, especially doing it in a way that is easy to understand. There are a bunch of different agencies involved in this proposed plan. That testimony could be running through the end of this week. It'll go back to the Air Quality Control Commission, then the legislature, and then ultimately to the EPA for approval.
So if their numbers that they were working off of on oil and gas emissions were foobarred to the point that they had to restart their work on that, why push forward the plan now as opposed to waiting for the good numbers to come in?
Yeah, and so that has been a big concern, right? Because that's such a central part of this conversation and has a lot of people nervous about its effectiveness. But the state said their other strategies and the other programs are still good and could still do some good for Colorado, which is why they're hoping that part of the plan moves forward. Couldn't give a timeline on when they'd be able to share the fixes that they're working on.
Anusha, thank you very much. Hey, Denver now has an advent calendar worth of mayoral candidates. There's a new one today. That makes 24. Open a new one each day. We don't have a photo for the newest candidate. We wanted to make sure that we have the right Abbas Yahya Bamba, and we have not heard back. Each of the 24 candidates for mayor and the 53 candidates for other city offices like city council get to opt into what's called the Fair Elections Fund. Offers matching campaign cash if people agree to limit their donation sizes. Now elections workers are saying, we're going to need some tweaks to the rules if this many people are going to get into the races. So this is the first election cycle for the fund that allows candidates to get a taxpayer-funded match for campaign contributions up to $50. It's supposed to incentivize small-time donors. Participants as part of this fund also have to agree to participate in 2 debates. We love debates. But the city's now finding it hard to fit all those candidate debates with all those people into such a tight timeline. The Denver City Clerk's office is asking City Council to approve some changes while the election cycle is underway, moving qualifying candidate deadlines up a month, giving the Clerk's office more time to set up debates. If approved, all these changes would be made less than a month before the proposed deadlines that they're asking for. If that sounds like they are inviting a lawsuit from a candidate who doesn't make a deadline, yep, there were some on City Council who had that same thought. But City Council has agreed to hold a hearing on these proposed changes anyway. Can someone explain how this whole nuclear fusion thing works to me? How this is going to revolutionize energy production?
Kind of joke, kind of a Death Star-like thing.
It's no joke, and it's actually been a big part of Colorado history. And a classroom Christmas project goes up in smoke. So the students are back at it. That's next. I'm not, as Forrest Gump said, a smart man, but smart enough to know that this week's news about nuclear fusion has big implications for how we power our entire world. Our Steve Steger knew Colorado's deep history with nuclear power, so he scoured the archives and also sat down with a very smart man. Steve will do his best to explain to me what he learned today.
Dateline, Platteville, Colorado. It's 1965, a year of opportunity. These men at the forefront of a new power generation. Nuclear. All right, that's getting old. But felt appropriate over this film of the construction of the Fort St. Vrain nuclear plant that we found in the 9 News archives.
A advanced gas-cooled reactor that ran for about 10 years.
Dr. Jeffrey King is a professor of nuclear science at the Colorado School of Mines, and he's been on the property of the Fort St. Vrain nuclear plant.
It was an experimental reactor. It was a first of a kind.
Well, former nuclear plant.
After a while, the utility decided it wasn't economic to keep it up, and so they shut it down.
It's now a natural gas turbine site. A chapter in Colorado's nuclear history that includes some real doozies, like Rocky Flats.
Certainly there is controversy there and things that were honestly not done well or to the standards we would do today.
And Project Rollison, a late 60s attempt to use nuclear weapons to essentially frack on the western slope.
My dad actually remembers seeing the device and remembers feeling like the ground vibrate when they did the test.
Didn't work that well.
It is, in fact, a probably terrible way to try to stimulate natural gas production.
But news out of California this week is big. The first example of nuclear fusion, producing more energy than expended. Too complex to explain in a TV news story, but I like the way Professor King did.
Kind of joke, kind of a Death Star-like thing, but I mean, it's this giant laser beam that focuses on this tiny object and compresses this object.
He's a nuclear fission fan and remains skeptical of whether fusion can be done on a big scale.
We're looking at a giant machine.
He says it could end up being a lot like Fort St. Vrain, hard to make commercially viable. That doesn't discount what an important moment this is.
They've made an important first step.
Now, Professor King says a big topic of conversation has been the fact that fusion doesn't result in a lot of radioactive waste like fission does. But he says there's still radioactive waste in the form of tritium, which we all know is an isotope of hydrogen. He says that'll be another obstacle to overcome, obviously, which is why he says it could take decades to try to figure out how this is going to work on a large scale and produce power, because you need a gigantic building to be able to pull this off. And they've done it just barely with a little tiny speck. It's going to be really, really tough to figure out.
I suppose as a start, I mean, here's the deal. I'm dumb as a doornail, but
this was tough. This was really tough.
I feel like a good bulk of what I think I know about how nuclear power works shamefully came from The Simpsons.
We talked about this. So honestly, he says that's the impact that like everybody thinks of nuclear that way. And it's something that they're trying to overcome because, you know, you think of like nuclear as these little glowing green orbs.
Yeah,
that, like,
Homer with the little glowing orbs on the end of the stick. And
it actually glows blue, by the way, not green. And you know, like you think of Mr. Burns as like the evil, you know, corrupt boss of the power plant, polluted lakes and rivers. That like nuclear scientists have been working for a really long time to try to overcome that because it's a clean source of power. You just have to manage the waste the right way and you're good to go.
They must be so frustrated with us. Okay.
I'm hoping he's not watching tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a 25-minute conversation and I got back to my desk and I was like, how am I going to?
Yeah. You did your best.
Thank you.
You did your best. Some of the Colorado River Basin's top water experts, more smart people, are meeting this week to discuss what the future holds when it comes to our current drought. They are not optimistic. A new federal analysis predicts that water levels at one of the river's most important reservoirs, Lake Powell, those levels will remain critically low over the next few years. The amount of water flowing into Powell is expected to be about 24% of average this year, and improvement will happen slowly. By 2025, the water flow into Lake Powell is expected to be better, but still only about 61% of average levels. Water experts say water levels that low are going to make it hard for the upper basin states, like Colorado, to fulfill their legal obligations to send enough water to lower basin states unless there is some major conservation on our end. You talk to Colorado's water experts, and they say there aren't many obvious cuts left to make. The state's conservation plans currently focus on things like restricting new turf grass and paying farmers to use less water.
Well, we have an easy but cold couple of days ahead. Right now, we're at 24 degrees at DIA. It feels like just 11 degrees out there with winds coming down from the north at 17 miles per hour. Those northern winds, very cold. But that big system that pushed all of that snow into the high country and northeastern plains on Tuesday, continuing to push its way northeast here. And you can see on the back end of this, we did see another round of snow showers push through the high country and even southern portions of the I-25 corridor. But that's really going to be about it. These are smaller snow showers between Castle Rock and Colorado Springs and then South Colorado City down to Trinidad. Those are going to move out as we go through the rest of the evening. So we're all going to be mostly clear tonight. Lows near 12 degrees, but with those winds, they're not even going to be that strong overnight. But the little bit of wind we have out there, it's going to make it feel like close to zero out there. So a very chilly night. We have another cold day in store for tomorrow. Those highs near 32 degrees. We're going to watch for those winds again to make it feel a lot colder, a lot like what we saw today. But then as we move into the weekend, we see sunny skies, those temperatures back in the lower 40s before we watch for our next round of snow coming late Wednesday into Thursday.
It's a project these students probably will not forget.
It got destroyed by fireworks.
And that's how a class project became a community project. Next. You see those little free libraries all over town, you know, take a book, leave a book. Third graders at Dutch Creek Elementary in Littleton made one of those libraries, and someone took a book and left a lit firework. Boom! Bits of a little free library all over the place. Our Brian Wendland went to see the rebuild.
In a cafeteria turned workshop, Dutch Creek Elementary School third graders get to work.
It's kind of fun, and it's a great experience.
A carpentry class that evolved from learning literacy.
We were learning about overcoming reading challenges, and that's how we decided to make a little library.
Little did they know reading challenges weren't the only obstacles they'd have to navigate.
Unfortunately, right after Thanksgiving, there were some kids who were playing with fireworks in the neighborhood, and unfortunately, this is the result of that.
It got destroyed by fireworks.
Blown up before the kids could put the final coat of paint on it. Unfortunate, but nothing Principal Sarah Oliver's third graders couldn't handle.
I went from upset to really inspired. It was amazing to watch these 8- and 9-year-olds come together and say, hey, that was really disappointing, but what are we going to do now? We're going to make it even better.
Oliver says the community stepped up too, volunteering their time, money, and supplies so the kids could get to work on the new library right away.
I'm really excited, and I think it came out really good.
When this library finally fills up with books, it'll have taught them more than they could have imagined.
What has come out of it is what I had hoped, is that students see that, yes, this was a challenge, this was difficult, but we can come together and we can overcome that challenge.
For Next, I'm Brian Wendland.
Kids, put the kids in charge. The kids told us that they're hoping to finish that library before Christmas because they want to make sure that people having a hard time buying presents might be able to come take some free books and put those under the tree. We will have your feedback on kindness, drowning out the negative noise, next. The most Colorado thing we saw today makes you wonder what kind of adventures are people going on these days. Now, check out this SUV. So we got it loaded up with 4 bikes and a Christmas tree. Valerie Frank spotted this SUV's haul on I-70 eastbound just before the tunnel. We're not sure if they were like mountain biking in somewhere to find the tree or whether these were 2 unrelated mountain activities. Either way, seems like a good time. Hey, speaking of good times, we're putting a little something together for this holiday season. We want to feature your favorite holiday memory, so long as it is a photo or a piece of video. Anything that's like iconic in your family of just a great moment over the years. And we're going to weave them all together into just like pure joy, pump it out over the TV and make people happy for the next 2 weeks. Email this stuff to us. Favorite holiday photos or videos to next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. Allison says, dropped off a box of warm clothes at Iglesias Ciudad de Dios after seeing that story on Next. She says, I saw a long line of cars and smiling Denverites wanting to help the new immigrants to our city. It made me proud of our city. And Turing writes in to say, this is about Steve Steger's story. What about the radioactive waste from the neutron activation of the reactor walls? I don't know, man. What about it? See you next time.